Hello there, and welcome back to the 2.18 dev server, the first iteration, and the usual disclaimer that everybody loves to hear. Everything is subject to change, nothing's final, and you have to take the information with a grain of salt. Then we also have not access yet to a lot of the new maps, and there are not all vehicles that have been teased so far yet in the game. I will also not have a look at drones because that would require an entire video, and the quote-unquote quick vehicle overview that I intend to do would be too long. Drones themselves are only available with light tanks so far, and you cannot really research them, so technically they are not new vehicles. I will also talk about some modification changes to certain vehicles that are already in the game that at least I am aware of. So without further ado, I go nation by nation and I go from the left to the right. So first things first, we have an M36B2 in the tech tree. You can admire it here after the first M36. And what is interesting is that it gets the M348 heat round with 305mm at a battle rating of 5.7. So you can shoot 4.7 tanks if you are in a down tier, and that is quite something. Yes, the stock grind is a bit nasty, but once you get this shell, you're actually set. But you get this extra punchy shell, and yeah, there is basically only a 0.3 battle rating difference to the tank that doesn't have the heat round. Then we come to a really interesting ship, and that is the USS Alaska. In the tech tree you can see that it comes after the Pittsburgh, which is great, so you don't have to go through the, I think, two awful lines in that aspect. The Brooklyn's capable, the Pittsburgh's still fine, although high repair cost, and the Alaska is set so far with 25,000 silver line repair cost. What makes this ship interesting is the just overwhelming amount of AA. Quick look at the armor. So we have the bulkhead with 260mm, side plating is 228mm, so you can angle it quite nicely. The barbettes have the speciality of being weaker at the front with 280mm roughly, and on the side a bit better with 330mm. The turret faces are 325mm and quite well angled. Rooftop is 127mm. The deck plating itself is 108mm going to 101 and 96.5mm. We have another deck, and there seems to be a gap in the middle of the armor plating, but that apparently seems to be structural steel, which does not get modeled. Now, what frightens me a little bit is as great as it might be to have all this 40mm, 5 inches and 20mm, this also can easily be farmed by high explosive spam, and we know how broken that currently is. I hope that Gaijin fixes this soon. A further thing to keep in mind is that the barbettes are filled with shells, so they are extra juicy ready racks, and yeah, the upper row is actually above the waterline, as well as the super firing turrets, same for the rear turrets. The secondary magazines and magazines for the Bofors and the 20mm are much lower in the ship, so they kind of will get also ready rack explosions. But as you can see, you also have basically a Moffett strapped to your side, so that's quite impressive. The reload for the main caliber is 25 at best, so that is better than I thought, but it doesn't really reach the levels of a Scharnhorst or the Kronstadt. And also the shells, they are slightly not as awesome as on the Kronstadt. You have 35 kilograms for the HE shells, which is still nice, but they're not that fast as on the Kronstadt or the Scharnhorst. Same goes here with the APCBC round, although their penetration is quite good. Still 391 at 10 kilometers, and a brutal 600 plus at point blank range. The bursting charge is relatively okay-ish, but on the lower end with 7.7 kilograms, and also the mass velocity is quite low with 762 meters per second. Then we come to Germany, and this is where it gets really interesting, because we get the VK3002M. So this is basically the prototype Panther, and it has a battle rating of 5.0. Now that is interesting, because if you first we have to look into the tech tree, and we can see that it comes before the first Panther D, which it has quite a bit of stuff in common, and it's the logical place to be in, and it's just the start of a new line, so it's very well placed, I'd say. It has an armor front plate of 60mm that's still strong. The turret is 50mm only, and the turret face is 80mm. A quick comparison here: 80mm, 100mm, and also 100mm. So the turret is significantly weaker. The sight, for all intents and purposes, is obviously also thin. You don't have side skirts, and it feels a bit more naked. But overall, I'd say it's really the gun that makes it different, because the gun is essentially the same. You get the Panzergranate 3942, and that has really high pen for this battle rating. And one further note, you have a horsepower to ton ratio of 20. That is significantly better than the Panther D, but it's also that you have a very low turret rotation speed, as you can see, which is the same as on the Panther D. Then we come to aircraft. The MiG-23BN is actually placed, I can't click, is placed here neatly after the IL-28, so it's a strike aircraft, and you also see this in its loadout, that it has quite a lot of striking capabilities, but it's not really something outstanding, I'd say. Yeah, the bomb load is not good enough. You have no missiles whatsoever, and that is just a bit of an oopsie, as well as I can't see flares. So nice to look at, but that's about it. Then we have something really weird, and that is the SMS Elving. So it's a World War I ship, and it comes after the Z-32 and before the Emden at 4.7, and that seems to be a very logical step. First of all, you can see that the ship is very much World War I style. You have the wing firing turrets, so the best broadside I can see is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, same as the Z-32, but limited. The armor is very much a turtleback, no side plating by itself, only 40mm, 20mm, and 80mm. Not really fast. Yeah, the magazine is also hittable, let's put it that way, and your guns have HE, SAP, and AP, and the AP seems to be the best choice here, considering the small difference in bursting charge. 52mm secondaries, which are displayed here as 25mm. Gotcha, typo, etc. Right? Then we also have 2 torpedoes, but there are nothing special to write home about. Then we come to the KM5, and yeah, it's basically in the coastal fleet, a new premium. Not really worth it, I would say, but let's have a look at the stats anyway. So we get the LTA1 1A1 torpedo 2 times. They're okay-ish, I'd say. Now then comes something really bonkers, and that is that the Prinz Eugen's torpedoes have gone up to 26. So we have 4 times 3 launchers, that's the word. So 6 launchers per side, and you have 10 spare torpedoes. But in the preliminary update conglomerate, it says it's 26 spare torpedoes. In the X-ray, I just have counted 10 spare torpedoes, those here. That is a bit weird. Actually, it's a bit more, right? What is it? 5 and 4. I might be blind. So yeah, it doesn't fit together. The X-ray doesn't really count together with the stats here, and this is also different because if it would be 26 spare torpedoes together once within the launches, it would be 38 torpedoes. That would be massive. That would be really a lot. Then we go to the Soviets, and we have a new squadron vehicle that comes here, all the scrolling. 10.7 squadron vehicle from Russia, the T-80 UK, and at first it looks like your Joe average T-80 variant, modernizations, shells, differences here and there, but it has Contact 5 integrated era, which seems to be really effective. We still have the weak spot of the driver's hatch, turret ring, and not gun mantlet, but gun breach area. We have still the very well known and beloved super special Soviet turret ejection system for emergencies. Lower glacis also seems to be a weak spot. We have heavy machine gun, and as shells we get standard heat, standard time fuse, first APFSDS, ATGM, and then the 3 BM46. Good shell. So then we come to the Su-25, which is in the tech tree, if I'm not mistaken. No, come on. There it is, after the R28SH. And we also have here the tech tree version, the K variant. So this is here the tech tree one first. You can see the loadout. Again, it is equipped this time, which is also a new system that we will see on multiple aircraft, already existing ones. The engine fire extinguishing system, which might be nice. How useful this will be, we'll have to see, because if an engine gets hit and burns, then it still gets damaged, English is hard today, and still has a limited lifetime, but you might just rob back to the airfield. As loadout options, we have bombs, we have napalm, quite a lot actually. I like that. And we have rockets, but then you are really limited to take either your payload or you take the R-60Ms as best missiles, only 2 of them. And you can also create a custom loadout to get the best combination of the 2, which is really helpful. The Su-25K has then the missiles already included, and also a mixed rocket and bomb loadout, so it's a bit more easy to use right away. Then we come to an interesting ship. This is the, I hope I pronounced this right, Blagor, no, I cannot pronounce it, not today. And this is a Project 56 PLO from 1978. That's interesting. So first of all, the guns are amazing, the 130 millimeters. We have also a broadside of 3 times 4 of those 45 millimeter autocannons. We have some extra 25 millimeters here, and then we have a lot of those mortars things, and also quite a few nice torpedoes. So the shells, high explosive, armor piercing, and also the variable time fuse, high explosive, the 45 millimeters, and we have no torpedo mods, so this is the loadout that I've gotten with. The torpedoes are long range, they're really fast, and they have a decent warhead. And then there are the RKU 36U mortars and the well-known RBU 2500 mortars for close quarters, and the ones are also pointed here. Then the Mikhail Kutusov is also in the Blue Water Tech Tree, so here's the premium. By the way, that is something interesting. It has a very good Moffat-like Silverline modifier, so I definitely will try this one out. The Mikhail Kutusov comes after the Chapayev, before the Imperatrica Maria, which makes no sense at all. It's another, basically Sverdlov, but a bit more modern, I'd say. Interesting are the 30mm twin guns, 8 of them, that you know from the Project 206, and its modifier for a tech tree ship with 6.0 is also quite nice, but the repair costs are already set with 25,000 fully upgraded. That's a big oof. Then we get a new model for the T60. That's a quite old one, and I really like it, especially with this camouflage, this the one that I've equipped it with. Then we go to Great Britain, and finally the Skink is here. So that's basically a Sherman with a essentially Wirbelwind turret, but in many ways it's better because it is not open topped. You cannot disable it with a machine gun, also not with a heavy machine gun. You actually need to insert an APHE shell into it. It also seems to have quite a decent speed or mobility, and the shells are decent as well. So pure HE belt, pure AP belt, and the penetration is not the highest. It's at the end of the day not a Wirbelwind. The Wirbelwind still has the APCR or HVAP advantage, and you enjoy therefore a higher battle rating because gauge balance. In the tech tree, it comes after the Istavak and before the Falcon, where there was a huge gap. Still a gap, but it just has become a little bit less big. Then we come to the HMS Arrow, which is really uninteresting. 2.71, 40mm in the front, yeah, that's about it. Even I am really bored by it. Then we come to Japan, and we get to the Type 16P, which comes in the tech tree, surprise, before the Type 16, because it's the prototype. It seems to have a little bit less armor. The 3D model looks actually cool though. Yeah, nothing really to write home about. It seems to have a little bit of spaced armor in parts, which reduces your vulnerability versus hash rounds. As anybody ever would fire hash in the first place, that's a rarity to begin with. And your shell selection is also a bit weaker, standard heat, standard hash, and then you are left with the M735. Still decent, but not the, I think, Type 16 APFSD as it was. Now, then we come to a ship that looks really weird, and that is the IJN Hatsuharu. It has 4 gun turrets, 3 turrets with overall 5 guns, which is nice. It only fires HE. And the interesting part is obviously that it has, at this battle rating for Japan, some 40mm. While they might not be the world's greatest, they are really better than the 25s. Now, what's standing out here are the torpedoes, because you have 3 triple launchers that can be reloaded each. So you have a salvo of 9 and then another salvo of 9, giving you 18 torpedoes, and you can fire this from one salvo. That's 3 more than the mighty Shimakaze. and even still 2 more than some of the others and other destroyers. Yes, there are the cruisers with 24, but they then have to make a complete turn to bring the launches to bear and also have really bad firing angles. So here you can see they're also pretty fast, limited range though, and there is no torpedo mod. And yeah, that is pretty cool for close quarters and all. Or if you just come around the corner and find yourself in a certain mode where there are all the AI ships in range, then this ship will be fun. Really all about the torpedoes. Then we come to the PT-15. That's a ship that we already see in the game, and the torpedoes got changed from the Mark 16s to the Type 72. And look at this. 20 kilometers range with 83 kilometers per hour and still 300 kilometers 300 kilograms bursting charge. England is hard. And yet they are basically mini long lances, and that on a patrol ship. So technically you can be in your spawn and fire constantly into the enemy's spawn, because in the spawn in Encounter, I think, you have the constant reload, and you certainly have the range. So this will be fairly interesting. Let's go to China, and we begin with the AFT-9. So not really that interesting, barely any armor. We have overall 12 missiles and even some smoke. 4 missiles ready to launch. There is nobody in the launcher itself, so you can be hull down, basically 10 degrees of gun depression, but you have no machine gun whatsoever. And in the tech tree, this is coming after the CM25 and just before the PT-Z89, which is strange placement, but let's go with it. Then we have 3 helicopters. So we already have the Z19E, and now this is basically the tech tree. We start with the SA342L Gazelle. This is the loadout options. That's basically all. You have the rockets, the bigger rockets, the machine gun pods, or the missiles, or the more missiles. If helicopters wouldn't be that badly implemented into the game, I would actually like the look of this thing. Then we go to the Z11WA, which looks a bit different and has the following loadout options. We have rockets, missiles, rockets, gun pods, missiles, more missiles. And then we come to the Z19, which looks also different. And then we have the following loadout options. You can see my enthusiasm. 8 air-to-air missiles, that's quite nice. A lot of rockets, 8 Hellfires, basically. Big rockets, and also machine gun pods. Then we come to Italy, and we go to the VRCC, which also looks quite cool. There's just something about those wheeled vehicles that give it a distinct look in War Thunder, in my opinion. So when we look at the tech tree, we can see that it comes... Am I blind? Ah, yeah, it's a premium. Donk. 9.0, there are the modifications. Thermal imaging is always nice. We have the standard heat, smoke, hash, standard APFSTS, and upgraded DM33 APFSTS at 9.0 as a light tank, so you also get the scout drones. Then we get to the T129, which gets marked as new as a helicopter. So we already have the A129 International. There is as a second premium in the tech tree. And we have various different loadouts. We have the ATAS AIM-92. We have the basically also Hellfires, rockets, various different loadouts. And this might be 16 Sirit missiles. So yeah, 10 kilometers range, 290 millimeters of penetration. So it's the warhead that's a bit lacking, but yeah, at least you have the capabilities and you can choose what you really want. So there is that, because the Hellfires don't have that range and are not that fast. And you also have countermeasures. Your 20 millimeter has up to 53 millimeters of penetration, various different belts, so that's good. And then we go to the G91Y, which is new and which we can find in the tech tree this time without being blind, after the Sagittario 2 and just before the G91YS. I like the look of it, but it is not equipped with anything that would really excite me. We have up to 4 1,000-pound bombs, we have big rockets, we have many small rockets, and we don't have flares, nor do we have any missiles. So this is, I don't know, not my thing, I guess. Then we get to the RN, the Verrazano. I hope I pronounced this right. And it would be maybe a good ship, or a decent ship, if the American destroyers wouldn't exist. We have overall 6 120mm guns at 4.3. We have some 40mm Vickers, we have some 13.2, and we have 6 torpedoes. So let's have a quick look at the tech tree. And it is basically the first of rank 2 in the new line, just before the RN Etna, which is a catastrophe by itself. The statistics don't look that bad. The torpedoes are decent. You have a torpedo mod, which makes them faster for shorter range, drastically short range, but really fast, and still a okayish warhead. And the HE is not really that great. The AP has good pen and a decent bursting charge, but you just have not the reload. It's around 7.5 seconds. Remember, the US 5-inch 38 has 2.8, so you basically have a third of the DPM of US destroyers. That hurts, and you don't have any armor. So there is that. Let's move on to France, and France also gets now an M36B2, just like the US one. It comes after the ARL-44, just before the CA Lorraine, and it has basically the same gimmick of the heat shell at 5.7 as we saw at the first side of the US tech tree. Then we have the SU 4050 Voiture 2N in the tech tree. It comes after the F-84F and just before the F-86K. Now, what does a basically bomber do in this line? Well, the funny thing is it gets missiles. You get here either 4 Matra R511s or 4 AA-20 Nords. And then obviously the one everybody is really excited for, the Mirage 2000 CS5, after the Mirage F1C being now the new king for France. And it looks gorgeous. I have heard rumors about very high speeds, a good performance, good maneuverability because of delta wing, but delta wing also means if you overuse it wrongly, then you are going to be really slow. We have Matra Super 530Fs, we have 530Ds, we have R550 Magics, Magic 2s, bombs, AS30 Nords and snaps, and also you can create your own weapon loadout, which is nice. So this will be definitely something that you will see a bit more at top tier soon, TM. Then we come to Sweden, and we start with the premium Leopard 1A5 NO, and it is your overall standard Leopard 1A5, as we all know and love them. By the way, here is also in the tech tree the PBV 302 bill. Sorry, England is really hard today. And for the modifications, you have a rangefinder, you have thermal imaging, and you also get the DM33, so hard puncher and also quite mobile. I mean, well, that's arcade. But still really mobile with nearly 20 horsepower per tons. And then we go to the PBV 302 bill. This time I got it right. And this is cool because it's not just an ATGM carrier, but it also has this 20mm that apparently has some limitations with the rotation, so it can rotate to the left. Now, it's not the most sophisticated 20mm out there. It has a mixed belt, AG belt and AP belt with at best 44mm of penetration, which falls off quite drastically, but it's better than nothing. And the RB56 Bill 2 is a top-down ATGM, so maybe not the very best limited range as well, and you have 7 of them, but maybe some absolute maniacs will love this and will make it work considerably better than I'll do. But it's really this 20mm that might surprise some very lightly protected targets, you know, that you disable them or make them stop and then you finish them off with the ATGM. I can see that. Also, you can go really well hull down with this sticking out that far. And then we have apparently the CV90-105 XC8 replacing the TML. It's not an addition for the discontinuity of selling the CV90-105 TML, but it's absolutely replacing the model. And apparently, according to the stream, the TML had capabilities that it shouldn't have in the game yet. Very smart move to introduce it in the first place then. And here we have the replacement for it, and nothing too special about it. Let's have a quick look at the ammunition. Standard heat, standard hash, smoke, standard APFSDS, and then also the DM33. You also get thermal imaging and also a scout drone. So there is that. And that's it for Sweden. Let's go to Israel, and they got a complete new line basically out of Magachs. And there you can see the tech tree. There we have the Magach 3, Magach 5, Magach 6R, Magach 6M and Magach 6C, complementing what the tech tree already has, together with a new Merkava Mark 3C. So let's have a quick look at each and every single one of them. I personally am not a fan of the Magachs, to be honest. It's just bringing back bad memories. So the armor is more or less still the same as on the US ones. X-ray is also nothing unusual. We might have 1 or 2 more machine guns than the Americans, and we have for this one the standard APDS, hash, heat and smoke. Then we get to the Magach 5 that has a lot of more era and lots of smoke launchers and lots of machine guns. So when we then look at its gun, standard heat, hash and APFSDS. Magach 6R, also standard heat, hash and APFSDS. And yeah, we also have a lot of era. And now I think you have a heavy machine gun instead of a light machine gun. So there's that. As you can see, I'm very excited. Magach 6M now has a really big point of interest. Yeah. So that's creating some memes, to be sure. Heat, hash, APFSDS, so that line is very diverse. Magach 6C at 9.0 finally has the 105 with the standard heat, an APFSDS. And finally we get the M426 with more pen, 430 decent muzzle velocity and 249 at 60 degrees angles of attack. And then finally we come to the Merkava Mark IIIC, which also has machine guns. Yeah, fantastic. And we have for the 120 the standard heat with 480 millimeters, a HE time fused. It might be useful versus hovering helicopters, but most of them will have laser warning receivers, so they then just simply move, and then it's not really that great. Maybe you can make it work versus hull down ATGM launchers behind cover, where it might be cool, but no promises. And then there's also the M322 APFSDS, which is not bad. 589 millimeters of penetration, 340 at 60 degrees angles of attack, and a high muzzle velocity of 1705 meters per second. So that is actually the vehicle overview. I hope I have not missed anything. Still, the Italian battleship is not there yet. I would love to have a look at this, maybe with the second iteration. And again, everything is subject to change. This is just the first iteration. The dev server is open now until the 7th of September, and hop on and have a look yourself. That's it for me today. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed this quick vehicle overview. Let me know in the comment section what you think about the various different models, the Magdach line in particular, how you're really looking forward to this immense diversity in models and capabilities. And as usual, you know how to like the video, you know how to subscribe to the channel. For you it's just a couple of clicks, for me it means the world. And as usual, we will see each other on the waves, in the skies, and on the battlefields of War Thunder.